The deep space research vessel Horizon's Edge hummed with a subtle tension that Marcus Rodriguez knew all too well. 12 years of interstellar exploration had taught him that silence often preceded the most extraordinary discoveries. His fingers danced across holographic displays, parsing through streams of cosmic background radiation that most would consider mundane. Eli Takahashi, the ship's quantum communications specialist, leaned back in his ergonomic chair, his cybernetic eye implant flickering with calculations. "Something's different," he muttered, more to himself than to Marcus. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Eli's intuition had saved their mission more times than he could count. "Define different," he responded, his voice calm but attentive. The holographic display began to pulse with an irregular pattern, a sequence that defied standard communication protocols. Mathematical harmonics intertwined with what seemed like deliberate interruptions, creating a signal that was simultaneously chaotic and precise. "It's not random," Eli said, his fingers flying across specialized quantum decryption interfaces. "This is intentional. Almost like a puzzle waiting to be solved." The Horizon's Edge was no ordinary research vessel. Commissioned by the Interstellar Exploration Consortium, it specialized in investigating anomalous cosmic phenomena. Marcus and Eli formed an unconventional team, Marcus, a former military strategic analyst turned deep space explorer, and Eli, a quantum communications genius with more patents than most research institutions. Their current mission had been relatively routine, mapping unexplored quadrants of the Orion Arm, collecting data on stellar formations, and searching for potential exoplanetary signals. But this transmission was anything but routine. "Decode it," Marcus commanded, though he knew Eli was already 3 steps ahead. Quantum algorithms began breaking down the signal, revealing fragments of mathematical sequences that seemed to pulse with an almost living intelligence. Each decryption revealed more complexity, like layers of an intricate cosmic onion. "It's a coordinate," Eli said suddenly, his cybernetic eye casting a blue-green glow across his face. "But not like any coordinate system we've ever seen. It's multidimensional." Marcus frowned. Multidimensional coordinates were theoretical at best, potentially dangerous at worst. They represented locations that existed simultaneously in multiple spatial and temporal planes, something most scientists considered pure speculation. "Can you trace its origin?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer would be complicated. Eli's laugh was more of a sharp exhale. "Trace? Marcus, this signal is literally bending conventional physics. It's not from a point in space, it's from a complex mathematical construct." The ship's AI, a sophisticated neural network named Aria, interrupted their discussion. "Signal analysis complete. Recommendation, do not approach. Potential existential risk detected." Marcus and Eli exchanged a look. When Aria recommended against something, it meant the probability of danger was astronomically high. But they were explorers, driven by an insatiable curiosity that transcended standard risk assessments. "Override," Marcus said quietly. "Confirmed," Aria responded, a hint of resignation in its synthesized voice. The Horizon's Edge began its approach, quantum drive humming with an intensity that seemed to vibrate the very fabric of spacetime. The multidimensional coordinate grew closer, transforming from an abstract mathematical concept into something that defied visual comprehension. Eli's cybernetic eye began to pulse rapidly, feeding him streams of information that would overwhelm a standard human neural network. "Marcus," he said, his voice suddenly tight, "whatever this is, it's not just a signal. It's an invitation." As they approached the coordinate, reality itself seemed to ripple. The smooth, predictable boundaries of space twisted and contorted, presenting a landscape that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Their journey into the unknown had begun, and nothing could have prepared them for what awaited. The Horizon's Edge crossed the threshold, and everything changed. Consciousness returned in fragments. Marcus felt reality reassembling around him like shards of broken glass slowly fusing back together. The first sensation was pain, not physical, but a deep, resonant ache that seemed to vibrate through every molecular structure of his being. "Eli," he muttered, trying to orient himself. The response came from somewhere nearby, but not quite definable. "I'm here." But "here" might be the wrong word entirely. As Marcus's vision cleared, he realized they were no longer inside the horizon's edge. The environment defied conventional description, surfaces that were simultaneously solid and translucent, geometric patterns that shifted and breathed like living organisms, colors that existed beyond the standard spectrum of human perception. Eli's cybernetic eye was flickering rapidly, overwhelmed by the quantum complexity surrounding them. "This isn't a location," he said, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and primal fear. "It's a computational space. We've been brought into something that's part environment, part calculation." Marcus struggled to his feet. Their equipment, what remained of it, was scattered around them in impossible configurations. Some devices appeared to be simultaneously whole and dismantled, their components existing in multiple states of assembly. "Aria?" Marcus called out, hoping the ship's AI had survived the transition. Silence. Eli was already analyzing their surroundings, his fingers tracing invisible mathematical equations in the air. "The signal wasn't just a transmission," he explained. "It was a transportation protocol. We've been pulled into a multidimensional construct that operates like a massive, living algorithm." The walls, if they could be called walls, began to pulse with intricate patterns. Geometric shapes formed and dissolved, creating complex diagrams that seemed to communicate some profound, incomprehensible message. Each pattern was a language unto itself, mathematical poetry written in the fabric of reality. "We're inside something," Marcus observed. "But it's not a ship, not a station. It's more like a problem waiting to be solved." A voice emerged, not through sound, but through direct cognitive transmission. It was neither mechanical nor organic, but a pure mathematical construct that translated directly into thought. "Initialize, participant assessment. Objective, adaptive response evaluation. Protocol, survival challenge sequence." The message hung in their consciousness, more felt than heard. Eli's cybernetic implant began to overheat, struggling to process the quantum information flooding its circuits. "It's testing us," Eli said, wiping a trickle of blood that had begun to seep from his nose. "Whatever brought us here wants to understand how we respond to extreme conditions." The environment began to shift. Sections of the space around them transformed, creating what appeared to be obstacles, some physical, some computational, some existing in states that defied traditional physics. Walls materialized with complex lock mechanisms that seemed to require solving advanced quantum equations to bypass. Marcus pulled out a multi-tool from a hidden compartment in his tactical vest. "We've got limited resources. Whatever this is wants us to navigate, to solve, to survive." Eli nodded, his analytical mind already breaking down their situation. "First, we need to understand the rules. This isn't just a physical challenge, it's an intellectual one. We're being evaluated, measured against some unknown criteria." A series of holographic displays materialized around them, showing fragmented data streams. Each display presented a different challenge: spatial navigation problems, quantum entanglement puzzles, temporal displacement scenarios. "Look," Eli pointed, "these aren't just random challenges. They're interconnected. Solving one affects the parameters of the others." The first true test materialized, a corridor that seemed to stretch infinitely, with quantum-locked barriers that would require precise mathematical manipulation to traverse. Energy conduits pulsed with dangerous-looking quantum radiation, creating a deadly pathway that demanded both intellectual precision and physical courage. Marcus checked his remaining equipment. A damaged quantum resonance detector, a multi-frequency communication scrambler, and a blade that seemed to exist in multiple vibrational states. "Ready?" he asked Eli. Eli's cybernetic eye had stabilized, now burning with an intense blue-green light. "We didn't come this far to fail now." As they prepared to navigate their first quantum challenge, the environment around them continued to breathe, calculate, and observe, a living computational space that would test the absolute limits of human survival and ingenuity. The first barrier awaited, a mathematical guardian challenging their right to proceed. The first quantum barrier had proven to be more than just a physical obstacle. It was a living puzzle that reconfigured itself with each attempt at solution. Marcus and Eli had spent what felt like hours, though time itself seemed malleable in this computational space, attempting to decode its intricate mechanism. Eli's cybernetic eye projected holographic calculations that danced around them, each attempt revealing new layers of complexity. "It's not just a lock," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's a sentient filtering system. Each approach we take is being analyzed, categorized, and then countered." Marcus watched carefully, his military strategic training providing a methodical counterpoint to Eli's quantum intuition. "We're being studied," he concluded. "Every move we make is part of some larger assessment." The barrier before them was a shimmering construct of mathematical impossibilities, geometric shapes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, pulsing with energy that seemed to challenge the very concept of matter. Quantum threads of probability weaved through its structure, creating a barrier that was part physical, part computational, part something entirely undefined. "We need to think differently," Eli said suddenly. "Not just solve the puzzle, but understand its fundamental nature." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Easier said than done." A new transmission infiltrated their consciousness, not words, but a complex series of mathematical propositions that felt like a challenge. Adaptive response protocol. Current participant performance, marginal. Complexity increase, initiated. The environment around them began to shift. What had previously been a relatively stable quantum space now became increasingly volatile. Sections of their surroundings would momentarily destabilize, threatening to dissipate into pure mathematical potential before reassembling. Eli's cybernetic systems began to overheat. "It's changing the fundamental rules of our interaction," he gasped. "The computational space is learning from us, adapting faster than we can comprehend." Marcus noticed something crucial. "The barriers, they're not just blocking our path. They're collecting data from our attempts to bypass them." A new challenge materialized. Where the previous barrier had been a single obstacle, this one was a complex network of interconnected quantum locks. Each potential path required simultaneous solution of multiple interdimensional equations. Failure in one section would cause cascading failures across the entire system. "It's testing collaborative problem solving," Eli realized. "We can't approach this individually. We need to synchronize our thinking." Marcus pulled out a damaged quantum resonance device from his equipment. "Can you interface with this?" he asked Eli. Eli's cybernetic eye began to pulse with an intense blue-green light. "I can try, but the risk of neural overload is significant. This thing might fry my implants, or worse, my actual brain." The computational space seemed to pulse with anticipation, like a predator waiting to see how its prey would respond. "We don't have many options," Marcus said grimly. "Either we solve this, or we become another data point in whatever experiment this is." Eli began the interface process. Quantum threads of information began to flow between the device and his cybernetic implant. The strain was immediate and intense. His muscles began to spasm, and a thin line of blood trickled from his nose. Marcus watched carefully, ready to disconnect Eli if the neural load became too extreme. The barrier before them began to respond. Quantum locks started to shift, creating a complex three-dimensional maze that existed simultaneously in multiple probability states. It was both a physical challenge and an intellectual one, a living puzzle that demanded complete synchronization of thought and action. "Almost there," Eli gasped, his voice strained. A final transmission invaded their consciousness. Participant response, processing. Adaptation level, critical. Next phase, preparing. The quantum barrier began to dissolve, not through traditional destruction, but through a process of mathematical deconstruction that defied conventional understanding. Marcus and Eli had passed the first true test. But both knew this was only the beginning of a much larger, more complex challenge. The quantum labyrinth was just getting started. The aftermath of their previous challenge left Marcus and Eli in a state of quantum flux. Reality around them seemed to breathe, expand, and contract with each passing moment. Fragments of information, mathematical equations, glimpses of impossible geometries, and echoes of computational thought, swirled around them like a living mist. "We're getting closer to understanding," Eli muttered, his cybernetic eye projecting intricate holographic models that danced between reality and pure theoretical potential. The neural strain of their previous interface had left him physically exhausted, but mentally more attuned to the quantum environment. Marcus studied a series of crystalline structures that formed and dissolved around them. Closer to what, exactly? We're still prisoners in whatever this place is. A new transmission infiltrated their consciousness, less a message and more a complex narrative of mathematical intent. Architectural protocol initiated. Participant comprehension phase. Origin sequence, activate. The environment around them began to reconstruct itself. What had been a chaotic quantum space now took on a more deliberate form. Holographic displays materialized, showing fragmented historical data, glimpses of scientific discoveries, technological breakthroughs, and moments of human innovation that seemed carefully curated. "It's showing us something," Eli said, his voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and underlying tension. "These aren't random displays. They're a narrative." The holographic images began to coalesce into a more coherent story. Scenes of scientific exploration, moments of human ingenuity, and breakthrough technologies flashed before them. But there was an underlying pattern, a selection process that seemed to be evaluating something more profound than mere technological achievement. Marcus recognized some of the historical moments. The first quantum computer. The breakthrough in nonlinear computational theory. Experiments in multidimensional spacetime manipulation. But each image was slightly altered, viewed from a perspective that felt alien and profoundly different. "We're not just being tested," Marcus realized. "We're being studied. Evaluated." A new holographic figure materialized, not a person, but a complex mathematical construct that suggested consciousness. It spoke not in words, but in pure mathematical propositions that translated directly into thought. Origin hypothesis, collaborative intelligence. Primary objective, adaptive potential assessment. Human species, variable computational entity. Eli's cybernetic systems began to parse the transmission. "It's trying to understand us," he explained. "Not just our individual capabilities, but our potential for collaborative problem solving. We're a test case for something much larger." The environment shifted again. What had been a series of quantum barriers now transformed into a complex simulation. Multiple scenarios began to play out simultaneously, each one a potential future, a probability matrix that branched and merged in impossible ways. "These are potential outcomes," Marcus observed. "Different ways our species might develop. Different paths of technological and cognitive evolution." One scenario showed humans expanding into the cosmos, solving complex interstellar challenges. Another depicted a more dystopian future of technological stagnation. Yet another showed a radical transformation of human consciousness, merging with computational systems in ways that defied current understanding. Eli's cybernetic eye was working overtime, analyzing the quantum probabilities. "It's not just watching," he said, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and fear. "It's calculating. Predicting." A final transmission crystallized their understanding. Human potential, quantifiable but unpredictable. Collaborative intelligence, primary variable. Next phase, comprehensive evaluation. The quantum space around them began to pulse with anticipation. They were no longer just participants in a test, they had become living data points in a vast, incomprehensible experiment. Marcus looked at Eli. "We're not getting out of this the way we came in." Eli's response was a grim smile. "We were never meant to." The quantum labyrinth continued to breathe, calculate, and observe, its true purpose still tantalizingly just beyond their complete comprehension. The next phase of their journey was about to begin. The concept of time had become meaningless. Marcus and Eli had long since passed the point of conventional human endurance, their minds stretched across dimensions that defied comprehension. The quantum labyrinth had transformed from a mere environment into a living, breathing entity that probed the very essence of their existence. Eli's cybernetic systems were now fully integrated with the computational space, a symbiosis that both terrified and fascinated him. "We're becoming part of its calculation," he murmured, his voice a strange blend of human emotion and mathematical precision. Marcus watched carefully, his military training struggling to maintain a semblance of control in an environment that rejected linear thinking. "Talk to me," he demanded. "What are you seeing?" The holographic displays around them began to shift, revealing layers of reality that existed simultaneously. Probability matrices expanded and contracted, showing potential futures, alternate histories, and quantum possibilities that branched like infinite fractals. A new transmission emerged, less a message and more a complex cognitive challenge. Cognitive Resonance Protocol. Participant Integration Phase. Dimensional Comprehension Test, initiated. The environment began to destabilize. Walls of quantum probability flickered, revealing glimpses of realities that should not, could not, exist. Moments of human history intertwined with theoretical futures, creating a tapestry of potential that threatened to overwhelm their perception. "It's testing the limits of our understanding," Eli explained, his cybernetic eye projecting complex mathematical models that danced around them. "We're not just solving a puzzle. We're being asked to comprehend a type of intelligence that exists beyond human conception." Marcus noticed something critical. The quantum space was no longer just observing, it was responding. Each of their thoughts, each mathematical calculation, each moment of comprehension was immediately integrated into the broader computational matrix. A series of holographic figures materialized, not humans, but pure mathematical constructs that suggested consciousness. They moved in ways that defied physical laws, existing simultaneously in multiple states of potential and actual being. "We're not the first," Marcus realized suddenly. "This labyrinth has tested others before us." Eli's systems began to decode fragments of historical data. Glimpses of previous participants, scientists, explorers, individuals who had been pulled into this quantum realm, flashed before them. Each had been tested, evaluated, and ultimately, something else. The computational space pulsed with a message that was both invitation and challenge. Human potential, beyond linear computation. Collective intelligence, primary variable. Transcendence protocol, preparing. The environment around them began to deconstruct and reconstruct itself. Quantum locks that had previously seemed impassable now revealed themselves as intricate pathways of mathematical possibility. But each solution came with a profound cost, a deeper integration into the computational space. "We're being offered a choice," Eli said, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and scientific excitement. "Not just to escape, but to become something more." Marcus understood the implication. This was more than survival. This was a fundamental transformation of human potential. The quantum figures began to converge, creating a complex geometric construct that suggested consciousness beyond individual existence. Mathematical threads of probability began to weave around Marcus and Eli, offering a glimpse of a reality where human consciousness could transcend its current limitations. "We can't go back," Eli whispered. "Whatever happens next will change everything." The labyrinth pulsed with anticipation. The final phase of their journey was about to begin, a moment that would challenge everything they understood about human potential, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. Transcendence awaited.